Our video today is on defensiveness. So essentially, defensiveness is the attempt to protect one's presenting image that one may believe is being attacked. So when one feels like they are being attacked by others, psychologists believe that a cognitive dissonance occurs, and there are many ways of dealing with it, as we will discuss later, but they all fall under defense mechanisms. So as we will go over, there are three types of defense reactions, and they are all defense mechanisms as previously mentioned. So they are attacking the critic, distorting critical information, or avoiding dissonant information. When one's personal image feels attacked, one of the ways in which they can deal with it is to attack the critic, and they can do this in two ways, with verbal aggression or verbal aggression is when you completely avoid the information being given to you by just verbally confronting the source. And sarcasm is a reaction to the perceived attack, and you sort of indirectly attack the critic with ironic or contemptuous remarks. A quick example of verbal aggression in the healthcare field is two physicians, co-workers, Jim and Bob, work together at a clinic, and Jim is consistently late every day. So one day Bob makes a remark about his punctuality, and Jim gets very upset and says to Bob that he has no right to tell him that because they have the same position, and Bob is not Jim's boss.
Another type of defense reaction is called distortion of critical information, and there are three different types of defense mechanisms. The first one is rationalization, which are logical and false explanations that maintain unrealistic presented self. Compensation, when one stresses a strength to compensate for a weakness, and regression, which is the complete avoidance of responsibility. So going back to our healthcare example, we can see compensation in action when Bob makes a comment to Jim about his punctuality. So instead of reacting aggressively by attacking the critic, Jim could say something like, "Well, at least I see more patients in the day," sort of saying that he is faster and more efficient than Bob is, so he's stressing a strength of his to compensate for a weakness.
And finally, we have avoiding dissonant information, and these are again four different types of defense mechanism. The first is physical avoidance, so that is literally physically staying away from the perceived attacker. Repression, when one completely denies the entire situation. Apathy, which is pretending to feel no emotional pain and not caring when really one is deeply affected. And displacement. So instead of venting to the aggressor or the person that was attacking you, the victim vents aggressively and hostile feelings to an unrelated target who is in no position to strike back. So going back again to our healthcare example, this is like Jim coming home. He's had a bad day at work because Bob has sort of been telling him about his punctuality and how he needs to improve. So he comes home and he starts ranting on his wife. So he's taking out the anger that he's had from his coworker on his wife, who has nothing to do with the situation, and this is known as displacement.
Evaluation versus description. Evaluative communication is the first type of defensive arousing behavior that get proposed. One type of evaluation is U language. Evaluative U language focuses on judging the other person, where descriptive communication focuses on the speaker's thoughts and feelings, usually in I language. I language tends to cause a less defensive reaction than U language. Example, evaluation. You don't know what you're talking about. Description. I don't understand how you came up with that idea. The effectiveness of descriptive language depends on the where, when, and how the statement is delivered.
Control versus problem orientation. Controlled communication is when the sender appears to be imposing a solution on the receiver's needs, with little or no care for the receiver's needs or interests. Control can happen almost anywhere, for example whether or not to watch TV or what is for dinner, etc. The control can generate power in a number of ways, like physical power, status, and insistence of irrelevant rules. Regardless, the controller has power wherever he or she goes.
Have problem orientation. With this, communicators focus on finding a solution that satisfies both parties' needs. The best solution is where everyone can feel like a winner. For example, controlling. You need to stay off the phone for the next 2 hours. In problem orientation, I'm expecting some important calls. Can we work out a way to keep the line open? Strategy is used to characterize defensive arousing messages which hide an underlying motive. Words like dishonesty and manipulation better capture the meaning of strategy. Strategy will usually result in an offensive reaction from a victim if the communicator's true intent is revealed.
Spontaneity. It is a yin to strategy yang. It simply means being honest with people instead of trying to manipulate them. This is not to be confused as saying whatever comes to your head without thinking about the consequences. Thoughts need to be processed and evaluated before being spoken. Example. Strategy. What are you doing Friday after work? Spontaneity. I have a piano I have to move Friday after work. Can you give me a hand?
That concludes our presentation on defensiveness and communications. Thank you for listening.